Hello. Man, Facebook is a little slow. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me make sure that is working. It is working. All right. All right. That should be good to go. All right. So, welcome to another public live stream session. And man, am I super fired up to talk about the financial independence strategy and how I am using my HSA or health savings account as a separate investment vehicle to retire early. There's also breaking news from the IRS with the new numbers for 2025 so that we can all plan to increase our contributions to our HSA starting on January 1st. My job is to teach you common sense finances and provide the latest information so that you can make your own informed financial decisions. You should not have your friends, family, financial advisors, or even me make financial decisions for you. This is the money that you earned. So you should be the one deciding how to intentionally save, invest, and spend. And I don't do clickbait titles or thumbnails. I just give you the content and tools you need to achieve financial independence and have the possibility to retire early. And while you're watching this live stream, you can download my retirement calculator, which includes the HSA calculator and other financial independence resources for absolutely free by visiting firesignchat.com/resources. And happy 529 day on May 29th. If you haven't seen that, so May 29th is 529 for the college savings plan. And I know that's such a nerd thing for me to say, but don't forget that the 529 college savings plan is not just for your kids. So if you don't have any kids, you can open one up and make yourself or anybody in your family tree the beneficiary. And then later, if you decide to have kids, you can transfer the beneficiary to their name at any time, or you can keep it to yourself if you want to. Not to mention that you can roll the 529 into their kids or your kids' Roth IRA if they choose not to go to college. And you can check out my 529 videos on my channel when you get a chance. And this is being live streamed to Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube all at the same time using StreamYard. So let me know in the live chat where you're watching this from. And if you're watching this on replay, let me know in the comment section where you're watching this from. And stay tuned because I am going to give out 5 free YouTube channel membership in the middle of my live stream. And my channel membership will give you early access to the videos that are not published to the public audience just yet, as well as any priority comments on my videos. So stay tuned if you want to be one of the lucky ones to become my channel member. You can always follow me on Instagram if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes and stay up to date on my content. I just started following somebody told me this channel is called the Money Guy Show. They're great. They're probably one of my favorite channels now, besides Caleb Hammer. I just bought one of their books that just came out called Millionaire Mission. So I'm going to read that and give some feedback later on. But, even if you're a hyper accumulator, right, you're investing for your early retirement or just financial freedom. I think, personally, I like to reach out to other resources, read other people's books, what they have done in the past to make them, succeed or become successful in general. So, if you don't know their channel, that's fine. Just check it out when you get a chance. But anyway, all right. So yeah, I can do that. I can put channel names in the later on. Just remind me later on, okay? So I don't forget about it. Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm going to start a new segment just real quick. And I know this is kind of something that I kind of started in the last couple of live streams, but I want to show you probably the most ridiculous comment I get on my channel. And don't get me wrong, I have really, really thick skin being in the military, serving in the military. You got to have really thick skin, right? So whatever comments get thrown at me, I would never take them personally. You can call this segment "What Grinds My Gears," like from the Family Guy episode. Do you guys remember when Peter Griffin said, "This is what grinds my gears," right? Well, I probably got 70% love and 30% hate on this video about the president's plan to raise taxes in 2025. A lot of them are probably not going to get passed anyway because they're not very popular in Congress. But I guess just because I disagree with a policy, I'm automatically associated with certain politics. I don't want to take too much time on the live stream about this, but I have to bring this up because this person attacked my subscribers by saying they're not critical thinkers. He probably doesn't know that most people who watch my channel are working hard to achieve fire. I would completely disagree with him that not only are they critical thinkers, but they are extremely hard workers and practice common sense finances to achieve financial independence. He also said that taxing unrealized gains and losses would benefit the entire market. That's false. This is a very unpopular idea in Congress anyway. So I highly doubt that this is going to get passed. But let's just entertain the idea of the possibility of taxing unrealized gains a reality. Well, it's not going to benefit the market at all because now there will be reduced benefits of investing in stocks, ETFs, or mutual funds that have growth potential, right? I don't know if people realize that it's not the retail investors who move the market, but it's the institutional investors with billions of dollars. It's the people in the top 1% of this country who move the stock market. So if they have to pay an additional 20% for every $10 they have in unrealized gains, they would have to pay what, $2 out of that $10 in unrealized capital gains tax. But this would mean, well, okay, but would this mean they're going to get taxed again if they sold their stocks in the future? No, because if this person read what the Treasury Department said, they're going to treat these unrealized gains tax as a cash advance on any capital gains taxes you might owe when you sell your investments in the future. But just the idea of taxing unrealized gains should be considered ridiculous because it might not happen now, but this idea will be brought up again to Congress in the future. Why would people want to succeed now and save 7 figures or 8 figures if they feel like they're going to be punished by the government later on? What would be the point of holding on to any stocks with a big growth potential, right? If you take a look at what happened to Canada's plan to raise capital gains taxes on the savings of wealthy people and corporations, their economists, Canadian economists, are already saying that they're likely to hold back investment and potentially hold back economic growth in the foreseeable future in Canada. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but there's a lot of misleading information in my comment section. Just because it doesn't impact you now, and let's say you don't make $400,000 a year, you don't have $100 million in assets, it doesn't mean that it won't impact you in the future. I don't have $100 million in assets or make $400,000 a year, but common sense tells me that taxing unrealized gains is not what I, as a taxpayer, want out of my country. And then there's the question of whether it's legal for Congress or anyone to tax unrealized capital gains. The Constitution makes it difficult to directly impose taxes on the American people. So they passed the 16th Amendment in 1912, 1913. It's one of those years. Let me know in the comment section if I got that wrong. To issue a federal income tax. They could pass another amendment, constitutional amendment, to impose an unrealized capital gains tax, but the chances of that happening are pretty much slim to none at this moment. But could it happen in the future? There's always that possibility. And just because I oppose this idea, it doesn't make me a MAGA or put me in any political designation. Let me ask you this. If I tell you that I support climate change legislation, does that automatically make me lean left? We can maybe stop labeling people and just look at the facts. And I always welcome people to argue and have disagreements in my comment section, but I don't agree with people becoming divisive and labeling each other, insulting each other based on one single disagreement. And that person was insulting pretty much everybody in the comment section without any explanation. So he's gone. This is my channel. I will shut you down for insulting other people in the comment section. You can insult me all you want, but not my subscribers. All right. Rant over. Let's talk about the main event here. So, okay. The IRS just released the 2025 contribution limits for Health Savings Account, or HSA, and they do this around April or May of every year. And this is especially exciting for people like me on the financial independence journey because we are one of the 8% of Americans who treat the HSA like a Roth IRA or a separate retirement account. The HSA is arguably one of the most powerful tools or investment vehicles I invest in to achieve financial independence and have the possibility to retire early. And when I say I'm going to use HSA to fund my vacation trips in the future, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to show you how it works. And let me just show you what Fidelity said, which in my opinion is one of the best brokers that offers a health savings account. And I'm not sponsored by Fidelity. So starting on January 1st, 2025, the HSA contribution limit is going to be increased from $4,150 to $4,300 if you're a single individual, or from $8,300 to $8,550 if you're on a family plan. If you're over the age of 55, you get to contribute an additional $1,000 to your HSA. And keep in mind that an HSA is not the same as an FSA or a flexible spending account. These are two completely separate things. HSA allows you to roll your money over every year, and you get to invest in index funds like the S&P 500. You can't do that with an FSA. It's probably the most overlooked investment vehicle for people on the high deductible health plan. And before someone like David in the comment section complains about how an HSA should not be counted towards your savings rate, let me show you how it actually works for people on their FIRE journey. And I'm going to use the 2024 numbers for right now, since we're not even halfway into 2024 yet. And then I'll show you how the 2025 numbers will change. You have two ways to contribute to your HSA. One way is to come out directly out of your paycheck every 2 weeks, twice a month, or however you get paid from your job. And the other way is coming directly from your employer. Depending on your employer, they could give you a lump sum contribution at the beginning of the year, or make small deposits every pay period. Having an employer contribution is really huge, because then you wouldn't have to contribute as much if your employer contributes some. For example, if you're on a single plan with a maximum contribution limit of $4,150 and your employer contributes $500 to your HSA plan in the same year, then you only need to contribute up to $3,650, because the contribution limit is a combination of both you and your employer. That makes sense so far, right? Once the money goes into your HSA, you actually have two separate pots of money inside your HSA. And one of them is in cash, sitting in the HSA checking account, which is meant to be used to pay medical expenses. A lot of HSAs require you to have a minimum cash amount before you move it into your investment account. Optum Bank, for example, requires you to have a minimum of $2,000 in the checking account before you invest the rest. What's the other one? HSA Bank, on the other hand, I believe requires you to have $1,000 in your HSA checking account before you invest the rest into the HSA brokerage account managed by Schwab. You can transfer that cash from the HSA checking account to your personal checking account if you want to. But keep in mind that anytime you put money from your checking account to your HSA checking, it is going to be considered a contribution. You want to make sure that you don't go over the contribution limit, or you could be penalized by the IRS during the tax season. And once you reach the minimum cash threshold, you can invest in anything above that amount in the brokerage account. Some HSAs will have limited options for you to invest, but some HSAs like Fidelity and Schwab will give you a wide variety to choose from: individual stocks, ETFs, and mutual funds. But because HSA will grow tax-free, this is a great investment vehicle to invest in something that will be less tax efficient in a taxable brokerage account, because the dividends and capital gains will not be taxed under your HSA. So let me break it down for you even a little bit further, okay? In the U.S. Tax system, it's called a progressive tax system, okay? For the longest time, I did not understand how any of it worked. Now, I just assumed that if I made $100,000 a year, then I would have to pay 22 or 24% of my entire $100,000 income to the IRS. That's not the case at all. Most of you watch my channel will fall between 22 and 24% marginal tax rates if you're a single individual. But just remember that your first $11,000 will be taxed at 10%. Then your next $36,000 will be taxed at 12%. Then your next $53,000 will be taxed at 22%. And then your next $91,000 is taxed at 24%. It's the same system for married couples, but you'll significantly save more money on taxes. You see how the first three tax brackets right here right, are nearly double from the ones filing taxes as a single individual, right? If you're married and filing taxes jointly, your marginal tax rate is only 22% if your income is under $200,000. Why am I showing you any of this? Because what I'm going to show you next will not make sense if you don't understand the US progressive tax system. Because depending on your income, you could have some significant tax savings using the HSA. Just keep in mind that this chart shows the whole numbers in the marginal tax rate. You could be someone sitting right in between 12 and 22% marginal tax rate, or 22 and 24%. So you'll have to do some manual calculations to find out your total tax savings. If you're not sure how to do that, then you can schedule a consultation with me by visiting firesuccess.com/coaching to find out how you can save taxes and retire early with your HSA. I just redid my entire website, so you're going to see some new features in there about how to become one of my private clients. So check it out when you get a chance. But anyway, according to the most recent survey I did on my channel, most of you watch my videos are between 22 and 24% in marginal tax rate. If you're single, that $4,150 could save you almost $1,000 in total taxes in 2024, which could go right back into your pocket, right? And figuratively speaking, if you're on a HSA family plan right here, you could save almost $2,000 in taxes if your marginal tax rate is at 24%. So the bottom line is that every dollar I contribute to my HSA is going to be in pre-tax dollars. And this is going to be on top of the standard deduction of either 14,600 for singles or 29,200 for married couples. And these are your potential tax savings in 2025 with the new HSA contribution limits. And now it's changed to 2025, right? Your contribution limits is going to be increased by $150 if you're single, or $250 if you're on a family plan. And feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want to. And when you get a chance, be sure to check out this video about what Congress is actually doing to make changes to the HSA. And they're actually all good stuff and not trying to take anything away. But with the new bill, they might allow everyone, even if they don't have a high deductible health plan, to own an HSA. And we'll see how that goes. But check that video out when you get a chance. But let me show you how my HSA calculator, which you can download for absolutely free by visiting firesuccess.com/resources. I actually didn't start contributing to my HSA until January 2022 because my previous employer in the private sector didn't have a high deductible health plan available to their employees. But since then, I've been maxing out my HSA contributions in 2022, 23, and now in 24, even with a late start in my 30s. By age 65, where it's labeled blue, I would have $1.2 million invested in my HSA if it makes about 8% average annual return. And this calculator even allows you to add the employer contribution right here. Okay. So if you're doing a family plan with a maximum contribution limit right here at, let me draw. Oh, it's not letting me draw. There we go. Man. Let me draw. Sorry, guys. It's not letting me draw. All right. But you'll see that $8,300, you would only need to contribute $7,300 if your employer contributes $1,000. So it's really important for you to find out what your employer contribution is going to be. You're not going to owe any taxes on your contribution or your employer's contribution. And the reason why age 65 is highlighted is because that's when HSA allows you to use every dollar you saved and invested in this account for anything. Before age 65, you can only use your HSA for qualified medical expenses, or you'll get penalized 20% by the IRS. But there's a way around it by reimbursing yourself in the future. So if you look on the far right side of the spreadsheet right here, you see all the highlighted green, right? This is not going to be available on the resources website. This is only for private clients. Okay. This is how people on their FIRE journey keep track of their qualified medical, dental, and vision expenses. If my family, let's say, spends $3,000, okay, in total medical expenses this year, then we have all of those receipts scanned and saved so that we can reimburse ourselves at any time. There's no expiration date on when you need to get reimbursed. as long as you keep the receipts. So let's say in 2024, it was $3,000. So I have $3,000 I can reimburse myself at any time. $3,000 from fixing my cavity, maybe getting a crown in my for one of my teeth, or maybe going to the ER or going to urgent care for anything that would be all reimbursable medical expenses under my HSA, but I'm not using that yet, right? So let's say I keep saving those receipts and I don't touch my HSA and spend a total of, let's say $27,000. Can you see that? Okay. So I'm going to highlight it there. Let's say I spent $27,000 by the time I turn 45. I could get reimbursed for that $27,000 for all the years I've been saving the receipts for my qualified medical expenses. That makes sense so far, right? Because I already prepaid my medical expenses. All of these reimbursements can be used for anything. And I could go on a vacation with pre-tax dollars in my HSA, and I could use it for home improvement if I want to. And I could even buy another property if I want to, truly. And I just have to keep track of how much I've spent so far. After I turn 65 down here, then none of this will matter because then I could use my HSA to pay for certain Medicare expenses and premiums because I'm going to be eligible for Medicare in the year I turn 65 years old. So knowing how expensive the healthcare system is in the US, having an HSA, it is going to be extremely, extremely helpful going into my early retirement. And let me show you the 3 bucket strategy for my for your HSA. Like I said earlier, HSA is not for everyone. You have to be ready to pay for your medical expenses now so that you don't touch your HSA. And if you have high medical expenses and you don't have enough cash to pay for them right now, then the HSA might not be right for you. Okay. So I have 3 accounts. I have my HSA right here, which goes into the index funds every single month. I don't touch it because I treat this like my Roth IRA and 401k. This is the investment account that could grow into 7 figures when I reach my retirement age. I can also reimburse myself at any time out of this account by saving all of the medical receipts. However, if I take any money out of my HSA now, I'm going to end up losing out on the compound interest, right? So in order to prevent touching any money in my HSA, I have a high yield savings account, or HYSA, that stores my cash to pay for any expected expenses. And I label this account the annual expenses account. For example, I just paid about $180 in copay for my dental appointment last month. That came straight out of my annual expenses fund instead of my HSA. I just paid $70 on prescription medication because I knew that's how much it costs at the pharmacy under the high deductible health plan. But what if I had a medical emergency? This is where the 3rd bucket, my emergency fund, comes in. It's not cheap to go to the ER or urgent care under the high deductible health plan. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's truly the downside of having an HSA. When I spent $2,000 on an ER visit a few months ago, I used my emergency fund because it was more than what I had in my 2nd bucket, my annual expenses fund, right? Since I always have at least 6 months of expenses set aside in my emergency fund, I just spend the next month or so replenishing my emergency fund. But this is what I always recommend to have: an annual expenses fund that will pay for your expected or known medical expenses for the year, and have a fully funded emergency fund that will pay for your unexpected or unknown medical expenses. And here's a pro tip for you. If you ever come across a huge medical expense and you have the cash to pay for it in full, you'll need to call the medical administration or administrator to ask for a discount before you pay it in full. You'd be surprised to know that they will give you a 10 to 20% discount for paying off the full balance. We get the discount probably about 9 times out of 10. And keep in mind that they'll only offer a discount if you pay it in full, because they would rather not send that to a collection or put it into a debt. They would rather collect that cash from you now, right? And if you're brand new to the FIRE movement, take a look at my FIRE checklist by visiting firesuccess.com/resources. And HSA is on step 6, right after paying off your high interest debt and fully funding your emergency fund. I do not ever recommend saving your HSA until you have the cash reserve to pay for your known and unknown medical expenses. Now, you need to have a mattress to create a cushion between you and the floor, right? And the mattress is your cash reserve so that you don't go back into debt again. And as soon as you start treating your HSA like a Roth IRA, you're going to have the peace of mind to pay for your Medicare premiums, expenses, and prescription medications when you're retired. Say when you're 65 years old. Even if you can't save seven figures in your HSA, having six figures or even five figures is far more than the rest of 90%, 93% of Americans with an HSA. This is your time to win and your time to take control of your finances. And this has been another beast of a video, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And let's get right into the Q&As. Why put ads during live stream? I don't know. YouTube does that. Just I don't know. I don't watch ads on there anyway. Just get the YouTube Premium. But sorry the ad played. I didn't play anything. It was right. I guess it just happened during the live stream. Okay, cool. So all right, let's cool. I'm gonna turn this into a clip anyway. Yeah, like I said, let's not label anybody in the comments, right? Like you can attack my ideas and what I say all day long. I can take it, but just labeling anybody else and saying that they're all delusional or they're the worst. I don't think that's always the best way to go. Um, have a really good logical debate in the comment section is always healthy. I read them. I don't reply to them, but I do read them. I do read what people say. So, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll put that in the label. I really like Erin Talks Money. I think that's her name. Erin Talks Money. She's really good. I do enjoy her channel. The Money Guy Show. Pretty sure a lot of you guys know who they are. And Caleb Hammer. He always drops some really good episodes. What's the other one that I watch? Somebody else. I can't remember. But those guys are pretty good. Check it out. Thanks for the reminder, Ron, right? More? Yeah. Appreciate you. Let me get into the Q&As. I know I got some Facebook and Instagram as well. I'm going to go into it real quick. Let's see. It's not okay. So just real quick, Medicare premiums are not on a reimbursable basis because Medicare at age 65 is it's not a you're no longer reimbursing yourself because you can take that money out for anything and you just pay federal and state income tax on it. When you can actually there's a way for you to directly pay from your HSA to your Medicare premium. So you know how you if you're retired in Social Security, there are going to be like a bunch of deductions, right? Like the survivor benefits, Medicare premiums, Medicare Part A, Part B, Part C. So instead of being deducted directly from your Social Security, you can actually pay directly out of your HSA. So there's a direct deduction. You're going to have to talk to your HSA broker on this if you're close to your retirement age. So when you turn 64, you want to kind of get into contact your HSA and say, hey, I'm going to be 65 next year, and I plan to enroll in the Medicare, and I would like to pay the premiums and all the prescription medications and expenses out of my HSA. And you don't pay any taxes on that. That's the benefit of it, right? So it's like a direct payment to Medicare. So it's a HSA is not really just for fire, which is the main core of my channel. It's what it's about, but it's to help you supplement your Medicare expenses because they're going up every single year. And whatever you contributed to your Medicare, that's kind of like in a big pot of money, and you don't really get that money back. You just have to continue to pay for the premiums, which is a really weird system, by the way, Medicare. But HSA is a great way to not reimburse, but make direct payments to Medicare when you turn 65 so that it doesn't get deducted out of your Social Security, because you get taxed for Social Security too, which is a really weird rule that you get taxed again when you're retired. So it's like, man, why are we doing that? Okay. I'll talk about that in a separate video. I already had a political video that a lot of people are kind of chiming in on. All right. Okay. Question from Instagram. Oh, good question. How are the HSA tax benefits different from the Roth IRA? Don't they both grow tax-free? Yes, they do. Great question. Let me show you why I prioritize HSA over my Roth IRA. And I actually forgot to show you this in the main content. Let me pull this up real quick. Just feel free to put your questions in there. Kind of really good. Let me find this real quick. Okay. Should have it right there. I'm actually really good at pulling. Okay. Is that it? This might be it. Yep. Okay, cool. So the HSA allows you to make pre-tax, that's it, pre-tax contributions, which means it will lower your taxable income every year. That's on top of the standard deduction. Okay. And it could potentially save you hundreds, if not thousands, in federal and state income taxes every year, depending on your marginal tax rate and the state you reside. Oh, unfortunately, you're not going to get the tax benefit if you live in California or New Jersey. They're not gonna reduce your taxable income for the state income tax. You'll still be able to reduce your federal income tax, but not the state income tax. But anyway, your employer could give you an employer match or employer contribution to the HSA, or just a straight up contribution based on your employer. Okay. But keep in mind that unlike the Roth IRA, you don't need to have an earned income to contribute to your HSA. This is the HSA and Roth IRA comparisons. You just need to be enrolled in a, let me hide it real quick, in a high deductible health plan. When you start investing, your HSA will grow tax-free inside your HSA and reimburse yourself at any time, as long as you have the medical receipts that I talked about just now to provide proof of medical expenses. And then after age 65, you can use the HSA for anything and not owe any penalties, but you will owe income taxes on the non-medical distribution. So when you're 65 and you're like, I want to take that HSA out and, you know, buy a house, go on a vacation or whatever, gift it to somebody else, you're not going to be penalized for 20%, but you will owe federal and or state income tax depending on the state that you reside in. So, and for the Roth IRA, the contributions have to be in after-tax dollars from your checking account. So if you compare it with the HSA right here, okay, you don't get your taxes reduced from the contributions. With the Roth IRA, you don't get an employer match or employer contribution, but the investments inside the Roth IRA will also grow tax-free, just like the HSA. And when it comes to the withdrawal rule, the HSA is stricter than the Roth IRA because I need to provide proof of medical expenses in order for those withdrawals to be tax-free, right? But with the Roth IRA, I can withdraw that what I contributed to the Roth IRA at any time, tax-free and penalty-free. What I cannot withdraw from my Roth IRA until I turn 59 and a half is the earnings and interest that accrued inside my Roth IRA. So, for example, if I contributed $7,000 this year and earned $500 in dividends and earnings, then $7,000 is what I can withdraw at any time right back into my checking account, tax-free and penalty-free. But $500 is what I have to wait until I turn 59 and a half. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you don't follow the rules, the IRS will penalize you 20% with the HSA compared to 10% with the Roth IRA. So I hope this chart can clear things up when you try to compare a Roth IRA to an HSA. Really good question. It's just that that's really the reason why you prioritize HSA over Roth IRA, is because of that pre-tax contribution as opposed to after-tax contribution. And then this one you get penalized for 10%, which you shouldn't take it out before you're 59 and a half. And then this is 20% penalty for non-qualified medical expenses before you're 65. So there are pros and cons, but you can compare the two. But right now, as a hyper accumulator, saving and investing for FIRE, I am going to take advantage of pre-tax first, if that's the only investment vehicle that I can contribute now. But right now, I max out both HSA and Roth IRA. So 8,300 for the family, and then my wife and I, we contribute each $7,000. So she contributes 7,000, I contribute 7,000. Another thing to compare is this is age 55 and this is age 50 for the catch-up contribution. So Roth IRA catch-up contribution is the year that you turn 50 years old. And for HSA is the year you turn 55 years old. So if you're turning 55 this year in 2024, it doesn't matter when you turn 55, from January 1st to December 31st, you can make that catch-up contribution for $1,000. Okay. If you're on a family plan for a single, for one HSA account for the family plan, you can do two $1,000 catch-up contributions if you and your spouse have two separate HSAs. So if you have an HSA and your spouse has an HSA, both of you are 55, then your spouse can contribute that extra $1,000 and you can contribute an extra $1,000. So that's one trick that you can do and really great benefits with the HSA. So check it out. Really good question. Thank you. Okay. Next question. All right. Let me scroll up just a little bit and say hello. First, Patrick Simon. Good to see you first. I am second. Do you guys see that in the YouTube comments? A lot of people put first. And is that just like posting the first comment as soon as the video comes? What it means? I don't know. I just put second. So I thought that was funny. Good morning to you too, Kevin. Kevin and Bob from Minions. Is it? Okay. Kevin Hawthorne from Florida. Hello. Good morning. Is it morning? It is still morning. Cool. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And try to do my best to help you guys out with the FIRE. And thank you for the reminder. I put the some of the channels that I follow. Aaron Talks Money, The Money Guy Show, and Caleb Hammer. Those three are really excellent channels there. Let's see. I explained that. If you go back to the previous segment, I did it, Missy. I don't know if you caught on to that. Yeah. Both of those shows. My show too, right? All right. Cool. Can you explain the details step by? Okay. Good question. So my wife actually just did this. So the question is, can you explain the detailed step by process for asking for discount when paying the medical bill in full? Do I call the number in the invoice? Okay. Great question. Yes. The answer is yes. You don't call the insurance company. You actually call the medical provider who invoiced you. So in the statement, you're at the very bottom in the little tiny phone numbers, right? It's going to tell you, hey, call this number. And when you have the cash ready to go, let's say you owe $1,000 for a medical procedure that you had to do. So call that number and say, hey, listen, I would like to pay this in full. Is there any way you can give me a discount? Because I'm ready to pay with this with my credit card, debit card, or check, whatever, right? And then they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, let me take a look real quick. And this is how the conversation goes. Well, let me look at your account. Yes, and your name was Mimi, okay? And say, oh, Miss Mimi, yes. So you owe about $1,000 on this invoice from the medical procedure that you did. But I can go ahead and take this out, take this line, the line out of the invoice that's not applicable to you. We can give you a 10% discount. That's going to save you $100 and this and that. And we probably save on average about between 10 and 20%. Let's call it 15% for every medical bill that we get, because high deductible health plan, when you have HSA, high deductible, right? So naturally, you're gonna be making higher co-payments. So when that happens, just make sure to call them and say, I'm ready to pay in full. And then they give you a discount and say, all right, here's the new bill. You can go to this website, make sure they give you that website and say, take a look at the new balance. And when you get that new balance, then you're gonna get that let me how I pay it before I forget. But when you make that payment, make sure that the new balance is in there, and then print out the invoice and download it, save it somewhere. Okay, because if you're on a fire journey, you want to pay out of your annual expenses. If this was an emergency, then and it's more than the annual expenses, then you want to pay out of the emergency fund. Okay, what we don't want to do for people on fire is use the HSA to pay for the medical expense, because I want my index fund inside my HSA to grow for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Okay. And that's why we don't use it. That's why we use cash to make those prepaid expenses. Anyway, when you make that payment, print it out, download a PDF, save it, safeguard it, don't lose it. Because from my experience, the medical services, no offense to anybody in the medical field, they're really terrible with keeping track of the record. So if they come back and tell you and say, "Oh, hey, you still owe us $200 because you only paid $800 after the 20% discount," you can be like, "I have a record here saying that if I paid in full, then I would get this discount." So I caution you to not make that full payment until the new balance is reflected, because you don't want to pay 800 out of 1,000. Now the system on their system is saying that, oh, you only paid 800 out of 1,000. You still owe 200. Give it a day or two for the system to reflect that you got a discount and they took out some of the line numbers from there, and then make the full payment. Okay. I have done this so many times. My wife has done this so many times. She's more of an expert than I am, but every time you call them and say, I want to pay this in full, they're going to give you a discount 9 times out of 10, because they don't want to put it into a collection. They don't want to put you in debt. They would rather get that cash now as a accrual based for revenue for the hospital, right? Because the hospital doesn't want to just, all right, I'm going to put this guy in debt, and they don't get that cash right away because they will have to go to the lender to get that cash. But when they get that cash from you right away, that is an instant revenue for them. Does that make sense? Hospitals are a business in the US. As terrible as that sounds, it is. So, we don't have a very good healthcare system in the US, but that's just the way it works in this country. But really good question, Mimi. I hope that helps you with the question. That's just one of those things that you can do to save some money on that. So, yeah, good question. Let's see. Oh, that's a bummer. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So really good question. So this person, Daniel, said, will you explain when I should consider switching HSA providers if the one I have has limited investment options? Please elaborate on the process of switching as well. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. So my wife has an HSA bank and I have a Optum Bank. And Optum Bank by far has probably the most limited investment options there are. I only found maybe 2 mutual funds that I'm like, all right, those are pretty good. They don't do ETFs. They don't do individual stocks because Optum Bank has their own brokerage inside. Okay, so they partner with UHC, United Healthcare. My wife, on the other hand, she has a HSA bank, which is a broker through Schwab. So she has like unlimited investment options. She can do ETFs, index funds, index mutual funds, and all that. So it's she has obviously have way more investment options. In order for you to make the changes, and let me go back to Optum Bank real quick. Optum Bank has some of the really high fees, unfortunately, and they have Vanguard S&P 500. That's what they have in there. I didn't see any other options that I was like, I could do that because most of them are balanced funds, and they have another index fund that's a real estate, I believe. I have to take a look. It's been a while, but I only have in S&P 500. It's not personalized financial advice to you. I'm not saying that that's what you should do. But when you make exchanges, it's kind of like a Roth IRA exchanges. Like, let's say you don't want to do the Roth IRA with Fidelity anymore. You want to go to Schwab or another brokerage account. You have to contact one HSA broker and say, hey, I want to move that to another HSA. Then you're going to have to fill out the account transfer process. And it should give you a form that says, this is my HSA account. This is how much money I have in cash. And this is how much money I have in my investments. Okay. And when you have investments, that HSA broker should give you the option, that's the keyword, give you the option to do what's called an in-kind transfer. Okay. What that means is that if you have, let's say, an S&P 500 index fund in your current HSA, and you say, I just want to do an in-kind transfer, what that means is that you're putting that S&P 500, say 50 shares, and move it over to a new HSA and have the same S&P 500 index fund. Now, here's the problem. If, for instance, let's say you have a Vanguard S&P 500 and you move it to a Schwab HSA broker, then it probably doesn't make sense for you to have a Vanguard S&P 500 in Schwab, because a lot of times if you cross broker and the mutual funds, Schwab is going to charge you extra for investing in Vanguard S&P 500, because because they have their own index fund with Schwab. So then you might have to cash out what you have in your HSA, turning into cash, and then you move it over to your new HSA. Now, there's another way of doing it. Is I've seen people just kind of get a check from HSA and just send it to the new HSA. You don't want to put it into your checking account and then deposit it, unless you have like a complete separate bank and you want to keep a record of doing that. But just be very, very careful when you do that in-kind transfer, because it's not always beneficial. And you want to talk to your broker and see what your options are. I don't know who you're transferring to. I will be the first to say I'm not a fan of Optum Bank, and I'm still with them because my S&P 500, my index fund has grown like over 30% in the last like 3 years that I've been with them. So but the fees do hurt. When I see a little bit of fees here and there, I'm like, do I want to keep this? I'm thinking about it. You know what? Now that you mention it, maybe I want to make that transfer. If I do make that transfer, I'll let you guys know and document the process. So really good question. I really appreciate that, Daniel. Was it Daniel? I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't Daniel. Okay. It was Daniel. Sorry. Yeah. So high deductible health plan, Shang, is not for everyone. It really isn't. So remember I was telling you guys about, let me erase all of this. Okay. Just real quick. Oh, so if you're doing fire, you're going to have 3 buckets. You have the HSA. I don't know what happened to that. Okay. You have HSA. That's your investment, right? And then you would need an annual expenses fund to pay for any medical expenses, prescription drugs, or co-payments for any visitation that you may have with the medical, dental, or vision clinics. And then if you have an emergency, that's what you would do. This is for fire, okay? Not for, if you don't have this one saved, your annual expenses, do not have HSA yet. So if you go to my firesightshare.com/resources, you're going to see that emergency fund will be the first one that you want to max out. Okay. Then the next one really to max out is your annual expenses fund. So annual expenses, remember, keyword is any expected expenses. Now, for emergency fund will be anything that's unexpected. That's how you can divide your cash allocation so that you have a purpose for each account. The whole purpose of HSA is to not touch it. We're not touching it. I'm not touching it ever. Okay. Leaving it alone. I'm only paying out of my annual expenses. So high deductible health plan could be very costly if you don't have that cushion between you and the floor, right? I use that analogy all the time because you can't lay on the floor without a mattress or you're going to be hurting your back. Same concept. You don't want to not have a mattress to sleep on the floor. I've done that when when I was in the military. That sucked. But just keep that in mind is that you don't want to put you in a bad situation when you don't have that cash cushion between now and your when you pay for your medical expenses. Now, if you have like a lot of pre-existing medical conditions where it requires you to pay a lot of money, then HSA might not be right for you, right? So you need to do that cost analysis and say, HDHP is not right for me because I have all these pre-existing conditions and it'll cost me this much money. So don't just switch to HSA right away. Make sure you find out how much it would cost under the high deductible health plan versus your low deductible, okay? So it might be better for you to just pay the higher premium to have that low deductible versus paying paying for the high deductible, if that makes sense. So just keep that in mind. Good question though. It's not for everyone. It really depends on your current financial situation and your health condition. So, okay. So, blah is correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. I know we talked about it earlier, but I can't diversify in Optum Bank because that's really the only index fund that's cheap and it's growing, right? Like I said, it's like 30% return in the last 3 years. But am I diversified overall? Yes, I am, So that's what's really important is how much, what is it diversified in my Roth IRA? Absolutely. HSA may just be the only, just be S&P 500. And what about my 401k, right? My solo 401k for my business, it has a variety of my S&P 500, the large cap growth, and I have QQQ and all that stuff. Not personalized financial advice. I'm not telling you what you should do, but that's just what I have across the board. That's one thing to look at is, okay, I can't diversify my HSA, but am I diversified overall in my entire portfolio? So that's one way to look at it. Okay. No, you may not. Let me read that question correctly. If I have a Schwab fund in my HSA, can I roll that to my Schwab Roth IRA or can? Oh, let me look into it. Generally speaking, no. Oh, at 65 years of age? Let me get back to you on that. Let me get back to you on that. I don't want to give you the wrong answer if I don't know 100% on that. So, let me timestamp this and I'll remember it. Okay. Let me go to Instagram real quick. I don't want to leave you guys out. Sorry. How do I keep track of my medical expenses? Okay. So I use Dropbox. Dropbox is an iCloud service. So anytime I have a medical receipt and I have a really good system to label my files so that I can always go back and look at, all right, this year I spent money on, I don't know, contact lenses and I spent $200 on this. Then I would label 2024 0125 for January 25th. And then I just label let's say Costco pharmacy or Costco Vision Center, and then contact lenses. So that's how I label it, and then it just kind of goes down the line, and then I would have like the dollar amount. So at any time, if I need to use it for something else, because those are all already prepaid, then I would use that and then get reimbursed. The reimbursement process is actually not that hard. Um, Even with Optum Bank, if I need to reimburse myself and I tested it out, it was like $1 on a prescription. They ask me for a receipt. I just upload it and then just get reimbursed. It's pretty quick. It took like maybe 3 days at the most. If you do it over the weekend, obviously it would take a little bit longer. So I should say probably 3 business days is how long it takes. That's generally how long it takes with the even like if you have an FSA. I know I talked about dependent care FSA in the past to save money on daycare and stuff like that. It does take a few days to get reimbursed, but just make sure that you have the receipt ready to upload. And the reimbursement process is really not that bad. So um, they haven't denied me for any receipts. So good question though. Let's see. Okay. Well, I don't want to leave the other platform out. Sorry. Good question. I have about $15,000 in credit card debt, and I have about $20,000 invested in a mutual fund. Should I sell my mutual fund and pay off my credit card debt? And I read that my credit scores would drop if I paid them off in full. Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather have your credit scores remain where they are and keep paying 25% in interest, or do you want to pay off that 25% in interest? Right. So here's the thing. There seems to be a very common misconception about their credit scores. Credit scores are great. We need them when we're about to take on a debt. And the only debt that I like to take out is mortgage, right? I have been debt free since December 2015. And I use my credit cards to pay off the full balance every single time. Okay. Not every single time, but every single month. And, let's say I use $500 on a Visa credit card and I just, pay it off at the end of the month and it never carries over a balance. The fact that you think, you're going to boost your credit scores by carrying over a balance, don't carry a credit card if you can't handle it. As soon as you feel like you're going to carry a balance on your credit card from 1 month to another, stop using your credit cards. This is coming from someone who once had over $47,000 in credit card debt. Okay. Don't do it. Credit scores. Oh, wow. There's a thumbs down thing. That's weird. Don't do it. I don't know where your mutual fund is invested in. I can't give you personalized financial advice, but let's say this is not in a, I don't know, Roth IRA or retirement. Don't cash out your retirement to pay off your credit cards. If you don't have any money to pay off your credit cards right now, just do the highest interest if you can to pay off your credit cards as soon as you can. All right. So this was my scenario. I had credit card 1. Can you guys see that? Let me go and zoom in. Here we go. Credit card 1. Let's say you have 10K. Okay. And then you have credit card 2 with 5K, and then credit card 3 with another 5K. Did you say 20 grand? Okay. I think that's what you said. Yeah, 20 grand. No, 15. Sorry. So let me divide them up. So let's do 5K. Take a look at your interest rates on these. So let's say this one is like 22%, and then this one is 24%, and this one is like 26%. Okay. So if the balances are the same between 3 credit cards that you have, then I would start with the highest interest first, because that is most likely going to have the higher minimum payment dues. Okay. And it makes sense to do it because you have the similar balances. But what if you had like, say, 3K and you have like 6K, and let's say you have 5K with that? I would argue between these and just start with the lowest amount first, okay? Because between 22% and 26%, it's a 4 percentage points. Remember, you're gonna get your interest charged once a month, and it's daily interest accrual, okay? So you want to if you have balances that are like 3K, 5K, and 6K, I would start with the 3K, then move on to the 5K, and then move on to the 6K, right? Now, if you have a mutual fund, and let's, what did you say? You have 20K on there, okay? So if you cash out 15K, I don't know anything about your tax scenario, but let's just say you're gonna owe 15% in capital gains tax, right? So you're not going to owe 15% for the entire $15,000. So let's say you have cost basis is 12K. What that means is that is the money that you put in, right? 3K would be the realized gains. So that is what you earned from interest, earnings, and maybe dividend reinvestments. I don't know your mutual fund. So that would be taxed at 15%. So what is that? Can you guys do the math on that? Okay, so that would be $450. Is that right? Did I do that math right? Yes, nailed it. First try. So $450 is what you will owe in capital gains tax, right? So is that going to be enough for you to pay down your credit cards? Possibly. You just need to set aside $450 in a high yield savings account and just leave it alone until the tax season comes in January, February in 2025, because you will owe $450 in long-term capital gains. But if you're in a short-term capital gains, again, I don't know what your income situation is, but let's say you're on the 22 or 24% marginal tax rate. If it's 22% marginal tax rate, then you want to set aside $660. And if you're on a 24%, then you want to set aside $720 for federal income tax. Okay, that makes sense. So you want to do these calculations first, because 15 grand is not going to be all 15 grand if you made any earnings and profit out of it. So make sure to check that out. And here's the other thing I want you to really pay attention to. When you sell the mutual funds, you pay down all of these credit cards, gone. All right. This is something that a lot of people don't think about, is behavioral spending. How did you get to $15,000 in credit card debt in the first place? When I had $47,000 in credit card debt between five credit cards with Capital One and Chase, $47,000, completely maxed out. How did I get to that point? Well, I had a spending problem, right? I'm not saying that you have a spending problem, because I don't know anything about you. But if you have a spending issue, you're not keeping track of your budget, right? That's really what comes down to it. People are like, oh, millionaires, billionaires, they don't budget. Billionaires probably hire an accountant to budget for them, but you really need to think about your behavior of spending, because let's say you pay off your credit cards today. What are the chances of you going back into credit card debt again? What if you rack up another 10 grand or 15 grand in credit card debt and you got no mutual funds right now, right? Let's say you drained it. That's all you got. Now you got to pay, pay back with a 22, 24, 26% in interest, maybe even higher at 30%. You need to think about behavior spending and say, how did I get to that in the first place? The root cause always is budgeting. You're not budgeting. You're not tracking your spending. I'm still tracking my spending. I've been on the FIRE journey since 2016, and I'm still budgeting twice a week. I used to budget every single day when I was in debt. I don't have to do that anymore. But that's something that you really have to think about. Don't worry about your credit scores. Really don't. I would, if the credit scores drop from, like, say 740 to 710, but you paid off your credit cards, I would rather have you pay off your credit cards than worry about your credit scores. They will always go up. And I have been debt free and I've been using my credit cards, pay off the balance every single month, my credit scores are almost perfect. They're like 830 or and above for the last 3 or 4 years. Okay. I don't have a personal loan. I don't have a car loan. I don't have a 401k loan. Well, that doesn't count against your credit, but I don't have any debt except for my mortgage. And my credit scores have been in an excellent category. So really, um, just you know, the credit scores are really irrelevant when it comes to your credit card debt. You need to get rid of those and just move on from it, and prevent getting back into credit card debt again. Boost up your savings. Go to firesetchat.com/resources, and you get all those resources, spreadsheets that you can download for free. Okay. And you can always go to my website, firesetchat.com/coaching, to schedule a consultation with me if you want to. But you got to think about your behavior spending. That's really the root cause of most credit card debt anyway in this country. And we're still on the record for the most credit card debt ever. So, good question though. Thank you for bringing that up. And I hope that helps you in the future. Okay. Okay. Let me see. I kind of got lost in the chats here. What do I got? I already answered that question, Shang. Did talk about the receipt and reimbursement process. Hopefully you caught on to that. Roth. So I do Roth because we are still in the TCJA Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, where the marginal tax rates are a lot lower. Traditional IRA, I'm not qualified for. It's the income is there's an income limit to be a deductible contribution, and I also have my self-employment solo 401k. So there's a lot to it. If your income is, I think, if it's below 70,000, I can't remember. Then you can go traditional IRA. But Roth IRA, in after-tax dollars, the money that grows in tax-free earnings when I turn 59 and a half is tremendous. Go to my website, firesetchat.com/resources, download that retirement calculator, or you can go to my YouTube channel and just go to Roth IRA calculation. And I did have a breakdown of your contributions versus your earnings. Remember, the earnings are going to be tax-free too. So just make sure to keep that in mind, as the tax-free growth is tremendous. I know my pension from the military is going to be taxed. Social Security is going to be taxed. I don't know why, but they tax it, right? I know my wife's state pension fund is going to be taxed. So we're still going to be in a very similar tax bracket when we retire, and we want to supplement our retirement income with tax-free accounts. And Roth IRA is one of them, and Roth 401k is another one, right? So if you're a federal employee, Roth TSP is really great. If you're in a public sector, let's say you're a police officer or a professor at a university, you should have a 403b. A lot of them only have traditional 403b, but ask about the Roth 403b. And I did a whole video on the how to withdraw, take money out of your 401k early. Check it out on my channel. So check it out. Good question. Thanks. Multiple brokerages. Yeah, it can. So pros and cons of multiple accounts and portfolios, different purposes. So remember that you may have a different purpose to what you're doing with your brokerage accounts. So you have to be intentional with your savings. I say that almost in every video. If you're just saving money with no purpose, then you're not saving money. You're really not. You don't know what you're doing with your 401k. I'm not saying that you don't know what you're doing, but with my solo 401k for my business, that is going to grow and supplement my income in the future, right? Roth IRA is going to supplement my tax-free income. I'm going to have a HSA that's going to pay for my Medicare premiums and expenses. Okay. And I have a taxable brokerage account that one, because I don't buy cars for every 20 years or so. I want to have a vehicle fund, kind of, but I don't need to have a separate brokerage account to purchase a vehicle. But if I'm going to buy a house, let's say within the next 10 years, then I want to have a dedicated, probably brokerage account if it's more than 5 years out, well, typically 3 years, but maybe 5 years now because the high yield savings account, they're still paying you really high yield. So if you get like a 5% yield or a CD and to pay for a house, that's always a good way to save for a house. But I have multiple brokerage accounts because I have different purpose for each one of them. One of them I know is for the house, and the other one I know is for early retirement. That's only high growth, and the other one is more like uh, a multiple of growth index fund, as well as some of the dividend paying ETFs, stuff like that. So it just really depends on the purpose that you have for the account. So make sure to have a purpose of what you're doing. Don't just blindly invest and say, yeah, this is going to grow. Label it. What are you going to do with this? Do a reverse retirement timeline and say, all right, I'm 70 now. How much money am I going to have in retirement income besides Social Security, if Social Security is going to be around? And then go to 65, go to 60, 55, and find out how much money what you're saving now is going to grow 20 years in the future. Go to firesetchat.com/coaching if you want to schedule a consultation with me. And if you're a veteran, you get a veteran discount too. So just make sure to get that veteran code on the website. You always get a 10% off with us. So really good question though. That's why I have multiple brokerage accounts. And even if they grow at the same time, there's no never mind. I'm not going to go into it too much, but yeah, you get the idea. So Curtis, so the after-tax income, instead of using the HSA money, that's really the reason is the growth inside of HSA. Again, I'm not touching my HSA because of the investment growth in there. So if I take money out of my HSA and pay for something, that is the money that won't grow inside my HSA, right? So even though I have a really crappy HSA, but I know that the growth inside of HSA in pre-tax dollars, and then eventually taking that money out in tax-free for qualified medical expenses is going to be tremendous. Like I want my HSA to grow from 0 to $1 million instead of 0 to 600,000. That kind of thing. I know I sound really ambitious when I say that, but that's kind of the thing, right? Because I have to take inflation into account. Medical expenses are like one of the fastest growing as far as prices go, and it's something that I've been paying attention to, is that the healthcare sector is just growing and it's outpacing inflation too. Drugs are going to be more expensive. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word on YouTube, and I'm sure I'm going to get banned for it, but just that's really the reason why, is to have it grow as much as possible. So good question though. Okay, so let me go back to the yeah. It depends. I don't know, Jesus. I don't know your financial situation, but I have always loved Roth 401k. So when I was in a private sector, I had a really good paying job, and I was really fortunate to be with them for 5 years. But for 5 years, I have always done Roth. My marginal tax rate at the time was about 24%, and I still did Roth between 2017 and 2022, and that man, that Roth 401k has grown so much over the years because I'm not going to talk about the after-tax contribution. That's a topic for another day. But just maxing out my Roth 401k every single year, even though I pay 24% in marginal tax rate every single year, that money has grown constantly, right? So let me see if I can show you my retirement calculation here. Retirement. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet that you can download from my website at firesidechat.com/resources. And if you are a returning viewer, I'm sure you have seen this calculator before. So let's say this is all Roth. Okay, so I don't know your age, or I'm just going to use, let's say you're 30, 2024, and your pre-tax income is $100,000, and you're going to max out your 401k with 23,000, and you get a 5% employer match. So employer match is almost always a pre-tax contribution unless you elect to do the Roth. You can't do that with the TSP, but you can do that with the 401k if your employer 401k plan allows it. Okay, so let's say I'm going to increase my savings rate by 2% every year, and my annual income increases by 2% every year. Okay, so that means that I am going to have 23,000. Okay, if you see that the first row here, let me go to, let's say 8% return this year, and then 8% return for the rest of the year. If you really calculate your contributions, 23,000, 25,000. Let me see if I can draw this now. Can I draw it? Why won't it let me draw? Oh, well, it won't let me draw. Oh, maybe I need to unprotect. That's what I need to do. Pause. Maybe that's it. Can I do it now? I can do it now. Stupid things I get excited for. Okay, so if I do Roth 401k, so I have 23,000. These are all the contributions. Okay, so contributions, and I'm just gonna make things easier. There's some numbers that are a little bit wrong here, so I'm gonna go ahead and change that to 0%. 0%, and then 2% annual income increase. There we go. That's more realistic. So you're already maxing out. And then let's just assume that the 401k contribution will increase by 2% every year. And the portfolio makes an average of 8%. Okay. So what I labeled here, let me erase it so that it's clear here. So all of this right here, if you add them all up, those are your Roth contributions. Okay. But take a look at this on the right side. This is what people forget when it comes to Roth investments. This is all the growth, okay? The growth will beat your contributions eventually. So when you scroll all the way down, let's say you want to retire at 55. Look at this. That's $2.8 million by the time you're 55 years old, or $4.5 million if you max out your 401k every single year. That's the calculator. Download it, firesidechat.com/resources, and it's free for you to use. And let's say you quit your job at the age of 45, okay? You're 30 right now, you quit at 45, and then you have over $1 million invested, okay? Then you have to add up what your total contributions are. You have to document this on your own. You're going to have to add up how much you contributed on the left side and how much of that is in earnings and interest. If you document your contributions every year, you can just subtract that from the total balance, and that would be the earnings and interest, right? So if you want to have early access to your Roth 401k, then you can make the rollover to a Roth IRA, okay? So because if you left it in the Roth 401k, you can't take that money out early without being penalized because you have a significant earnings in there. But if you move it into a Roth IRA after you retire early, then you can take the money, just the money that you contributed. So that would be your contributions. And let's say out of the 1 million, you have 300K. That's 300K that you can take out, but 700K in earnings are what you can't touch, right? Until you're 59 and a half. So please keep that in mind. Is when you do that, is when you move it to your Roth IRA, then you can take that money out early. That's the reason why I do the 401k now, or Roth 401k, because I have more options to take that money out early as opposed to traditional 401k. Sure, you get to enjoy that tax break now, but you're not going to be able to take that traditional 401k out until you're 55, and you would have to leave that money in the 401k in order for you to take that money out at the age of 55. Look up the rule of 55 for 401k on Google search, and it'll tell you that. So if it's 2.8 million, right? And let's say you do all traditional 401k. I mean, you could do the 4% withdrawal rule. And what is that? 2.8, I believe that's $100,000 a year. Make sure that about 112,000. Is that right? I do math. 2.8 million. And yeah, that's about $112,000 a year. So if you did that for the traditional 401k right here, you have to leave that money in the 401k. You can't move that to your IRA without paying taxes on it. So you need to take the tax into consideration for 112,000 for the 4% withdrawal rate. I'm just giving you an example, and that could be if you're single, that would put you at over 24% marginal tax rate. If you're married, you will be, I'm going to put single. If you're married, you will be at 22% married. Okay. So 24% will be taken out at 112,000. And 22%, if you're married, will be taken out at $112,000 a year. I would rather very much take money out without paying the government any more money. That's just me. My financial situation may not apply to everyone. Just even if you're not making as much money right now, it's okay. Start small. Look at your marginal tax rate right now. If your income is less than 12% marginal tax rate, Roth might make sense, right? Because now you're paying less taxes at the beginning. And then as your income goes up to 100,000, maybe you want to do both traditional or Roth. It's up to you. Or you can continue to do Roth. Your personal finance is personalized, right? It's not the same as mine. I already went through my debt-free journey. I am debt-free, and I'm working on my financial independence journey so that I can retire early. So just great question, Jesus, and just compare those two and see which one is more beneficial. Let me go back to Instagram here. Oh, hour and a half already. Okay. Last question, maybe. No, you know what? I'm gonna do this some other day. Great questions. I really, really appreciate you guys being here. I can't thank you enough for your continued support. I know I was getting some. It's amazing what you guys do for me in the comment section, because I don't even have to reply to the negative comments. You guys just do it for me. You guys just straight up just defend me. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I have never even met him. I've met a lot of you guys in the private client program, but just the fact that you guys are, I know you're hard workers. You're constantly saving money, investing money, and I know that you can get there because you're always learning from not just from someone like me, but from other financial channels, right? And I really hope that you can check out those guys and see what they say, compare and contrast. Maybe you don't like me anymore. Maybe you end up liking what other people do. So check it out when you get a chance. But I appreciate you guys being here. And until next time.